With the new Prelude on the way, there's been a lot more Prelude talk on the internet, and people have strong opinions. The newest Prelude is a hybrid and utilizes the same system as the current Civic hybrid, which that alone has people up in arms about. But to take it one step further, it does not come in a manual transmission. In fact, it doesn't really have a transmission at all. So people are really upset that it's losing the thing that would make it fun to drive, and therefore it has lost its sports car status. Most car enthusiasts agree that sports cars should have a manual transmission. Like, that's the whole point. No manual, no sports, simple as that. Regardless of how you feel about that, I don't think the Prelude needs to come in a manual because the Honda Prelude is not a sports car. It has never been a sports car, and it was never meant to be one. Don't get me wrong, you can make it a sports car, but it is not one by design. Just because it shows up on Wikipedia's list of sports cars does not mean it's a sports car. I believe that the Honda Prelude is a personal luxury coupe with sporty styling. You might be thinking, well, what about the Type SH or the SI trims? Like, that's sporty, that's a sports car, right? I mean, those are definitely sporty trims, but a trim level does not make a sports car. Honda was making sports cars well before the Prelude and made their best sports cars during the Prelude's initial run. If that's what they had intended with the Prelude, they would have done that from the beginning. Now, I will say Honda did not have a sports car in their lineup when the Prelude was introduced in 1978, but this was a tough time for cars in general. Lots of new fuel efficiency regulations were being introduced as a result of the oil crisis, so it just wasn't the right time for a new fun car. I also have a little bit of a conspiracy theory. This is truly just me speculating, but I think the original Prelude was meant to be a grand touring vehicle. In the early to mid-70s, Honda had a very rudimentary concept car of a mid-engine V8. It didn't even make it to the stage where they would have had like a full-size version of it to show off, so definitely take this with a grain of salt, but I think this could have been the Prelude in some alternate timeline. Despite this concept never being officially made, Honda definitely still went for a more high-end approach. The first Prelude was sold at the Honda Verno dealerships in Japan, which was the first of 3 specialty Honda dealerships. The idea was to target a certain type of buyer, so for the Verno dealerships, they showcased their more expensive, more luxury cars, while the other 2 were more for the average person. So the Prelude's debut here really set the tone quite well. It's a high-end product for those with sophisticated taste. It showcased Honda's best in tech and comfort. Even the base models came standard with premium features, like the sunroof. Honestly, it should have been badged as an Acura here to really get the point across. But like many other luxury coupes, it was styled in a pretty sporty way, but it's not a sports car. In 1985, both the Prelude and the CRX were available in the SI trim, and they were the first ones to get this. But don't be fooled. The modern association with SI is not what it was back then. The Prelude SI meant that it was fuel injected, or quite literally sport injected, while the base model Preludes were still carbureted. I don't think you should have to inject sport into a sports car. So again, not a sports car. There were a lot of other changes along with this, though, like better seats, a better steering wheel, different taillights, and a bigger engine. But unlike modern SIs, it came in both a manual and an automatic. To me, this was more like a half generation rather than just a new trim level. This generation of Prelude came out in 82 and ended in 87, so you're introducing a very different version of this car right before a new generation starts. But that's neither here nor there. This was all true for the CRX too, which I think is closer to an actual sports car, but still isn't one. But it was definitely more capable than the Prelude was at the time. Anyways, once you get into the 3rd gen Prelude and beyond, this is where people really started claiming that it's a sports car. And I will admit that it had more sporty offerings, and it was easier to turn it into a sports car if you were so inclined, but ultimately, if Honda wanted to make a sports car, they would have just made a sports car. They did a fantastic job with the S2000 and NSX. If they wanted the Prelude to be like that, they would have made it like that. Higher end coupes are just sporty looking most of the time, but they prioritize a comfortable interior and a pleasant driving experience, which is exactly what the Prelude has to offer, though the condition that some of them are in now makes that hard to believe. Taking all of this into consideration, the new Prelude does live up to its lineage, despite what critics may say. Honda's current hybrid system is really good, and it makes sense to me that they would want to show it off in the Prelude. Honda has always been willing to be bold and take risks when it comes to their hybrids. We saw that with the original Insight and the CR-Z, but unlike those two cars, this one is very heavily leaning into a more luxurious experience. If you don't count the Honda E, the new Prelude is also the second vehicle to use Honda's official new font, which has only been seen on the Prologue so far. So these two cars together are really opening the door for a new era of Honda. I'm hoping the Prelude is a better example of what's to come, since the Prologue is probably the worst thing Honda's ever put their logo on, but I don't actually have high hopes that it will sell well. I hope it sells well because I think it's really cool, but like all Preludes, it's destined to be cursed in some way.